Dungeon Drafters is unlike any other deck building roguelite that I've ever played. It aims for a pure deck building approach that also contains some JRPG elements that's sure to keep your attention. It has interactive and challenging combat that values high risk with high reward. It's because of this and various other things that just makes this game a hidden gem that people deserve to know. You, among many other adventurers, are on the quest to seal a great evil that's been unleashed upon the world again. After selecting our hero, they will not only experience one of the worst days of their life, but also probably the last day of their life too, as a giant tsunami crashes and wrecks everybody on board. After waking up with no knowledge and probably a really big headache, all we really notice is that we're on a beach and that there's a dark looming tower that stretches way above the clouds. Our goal is to discover where we are and most importantly, figure out what's the deal with this mysterious looming tower that may or may not be the source of the great evil. So after exploring the ruins a bit, experiencing some gameplay, and defeating some slimes across the way, we get locked into a boss battle, and he's not very happy. The boss decides that we've had enough fun and mercilessly brutalizes us. But luckily, like a gamer, we don't die. We respawn and appear inside of a castle. Here we find several other people who were also in the shipwreck and also a whole bunch of facilities here that will help us as we adventure. Everybody on this island directs us towards the stagecoach, who will be our navigator to explore the different dungeons in this game. And it's here where I can start going into the game mechanics. In this game, we have dungeon crawling, but before we can dungeon crawl, we have to choose where we're going to go. We have the lush and simplistic lands of Misty Grove ruins, the dark and infested shipwreck of, well, our ship's lost wreckage, the magically induced and frostbitten land of the Glacial Library, the hot and desolate ever-shifting sand dunes of Dune Dome, the volcanic fortress lit with dark quarries in between, Magma City, and finally, the tower. Very menacing, right? As we explore the dungeons, we will come across randomized rooms that contains different things, such as enemies, puzzles, and treasures. There will be restrooms from time to time to help you sustain yourself for when you get really injured in your adventure. As you approach the end of the floor, you will have the option to either leave with your rewards displayed, or head further into the dungeon for a riskier but more rewarding rewards. It is up to us as the player to properly survive through the randomized rooms by planning which rooms to tackle and using our survivability to gauge whether or not we can gain even more rewards. And that pretty much explains the dungeon crawling aspect of this game. But we need to move more into more of the physical stuff, like combat. The turn-based combat works exactly how you think it would. When you attack or take an action, it will use AP, which is your action gauge. When you run out of AP, your turn ends. Turn order is decided by your character automatically going first, and everyone else's is based on how close they are to you. In battle, your characters will have cards that will allow them to do various actions that can help turn battles into your favor. This will be your main source of damage and other utilities. After a spell is used, it will go to the graveyard and will be inaccessible until you replenish it at a rest room or return home from your dungeon crawling. Spells can range from shooting fire directly from your finger, to Thanos snapping a slime, summoning a slime to fight alongside you, and summoning a trick effigy that I probably should be a little bit more careful with. Yeah, I should probably stop hitting everything I see. During your adventure, you will encounter many enemies throughout your journey, each with their own gimmick and caveats that you will have to maneuver in mind-wrenching ways. Enemies will have access to buffs, debuffs, counters, and worst of all, summons, so that you will have to be vigilant in battle to stay alive or risk death. Your job is to make sure that you take account of the many different things such as positioning, enemies and their intent, and most of all, your own toolkit to stay alive and strengthen yourself with each successful journey. And now that we've generally talked about the combat, now it's time to talk about the main aspect of the game, which is the deck building. I just wanted to go on a small tangent here. This is my favorite part of the game, and this is what originally sparked this idea of a video. What I really like about this is the fact that I am now given control over everything that flows in and out of my build. It gives me the freedom to do anything that I want, and honestly, it's really relieving. It's super different from what I'm used to. With each character, they have their own starter deck which resembles their styles, such as the mage having magic, the rogue having assassin-like skills, the rabbit... Honestly, I'm not so sure about this one. Although each character has their own starter deck, this doesn't lock you into a certain build as every card is obtainable with every character. So essentially, the further you get in the game, it essentially just makes your character more of a cosmetic than actually something impactful. On the side note, I honestly had to switch from mage to rogue just because I wasn't comfortable with the mage's playstyle at the time. So definitely really take who you choose into consideration. It may be for a short while, it may be not, who knows? Just pick who you want to pick and roll with it. As you adventure, you will have a chance of obtaining booster packs that contains cards specific to different areas in the game. It's very important to make sure that you don't die during your run because you will lose them upon death if you haven't stored them into the bank. Other than that, it's just a cool gacha system at the end of the day. At least I'm not gonna lose my entire life savings to this game. The deck building does have quite a bit of depth when planning out a build, such as the runes which directly impact which cards you'll be able to use in your build, and the curios which can give you bonuses like healing HP after every combat and more. You can also save and load builds, so don't be afraid to try something new. Feel free to experiment. I also do have some tips for you. There's a lot of reading that can be involved with this, but it's not always needed. Sometimes the best way to learn is just to add what looks cool to you and then just hopping in to test it out. I think the active gameplay will help you learn a lot more about what you're using than just reading what the skill does. In summary, when choosing a character, they all start off with a specific playstyle, but ultimately it becomes less important the further you progress in the game. You can choose which playstyle fits you best at the beginning or pick based off the cosmetic. It really doesn't matter. The game gives you the freedom to build any deck you want, so go ham and experiment to your heart's desire. Now, if you ask me what the general gameplay loop, I think the average gameplay would look like this. First, you would choose an area to explore. Next, you would fight the enemies, learning their gimmicks and nuances to battle them effectively. After that, you would solve puzzles and unlock treasures along the way, and then essentially go as far as you can handle and return back to gain your rewards. You would use the booster packs earned to gain stronger cards, and then you would implement them into your deck based off their effectiveness for your situation. Then from there on, rinse and repeat. As you can imagine, this game can sometimes feel monotonous, but that's why there's other things that breaks the boring. First of all, we have puzzles. The puzzles will get you thinking from time to time, and sometimes you'll need to think out of the box. Some could be just as easy as hitting the dummy with enough damage to outpower his healing, but others could be more nuanced, such as having units or enemies step on the pressure plates to open up the rooms. And I can imagine that it only gets more advanced from there. They also have an addictive slime split puzzle game that doesn't really offer much, but it's definitely pretty fun to break in between the time exploring. But just in case if that hasn't sold you, then they have fishing. Yup, you heard me right, fishing. It's just like I always say, if a game has fishing in it, it's a good game. Leonardo, my boy, I got to say, you have done it. The music you have created in this game is an entire mind worm for me. Listening to the tracks inside of this game can give me a whole different feeling just from how distinct each place is. When I'm listening to the song Under the Tower Shadow, it gives me the feeling of a calm and serene place, with also a sense of an incoming adventurer's tale. And oh my gosh, dude, the battle music is so good. Hessian Secrets A is my favorite theme. It is the song that I mainly listen to my entire time editing. Heck, I'm probably even listening to it right now. Lost in Mistwood A is also such a great beginning battle theme. It really sets the example for the type of music you will be hearing, and plus it goes even further than that. The way it is introduced is so well, and I will never forget that. Climbing Chaos A is so jazzy for no reason. Climbing such a dangerous tower like this shouldn't be this funky. And then what's even crazier is that there's dynamic music in this game. That means the music can go from this calm build up to the biggest blowout that you'll ever hear from a song. And that's just only a small pick of my favorite few. If I went through them all, then I'd be here forever. And another thing that breaks the boring is the fact that this game is a pure card collector at heart. That means that you can collect all sorts of things in this game. You have the collection cards, which are basically your main cards. You have the special cards, which are cards that causes different status effects. You have runes, which are the main backbone behind which cards you'll be able to use. The curios, which are essentially passives that provides different benefits. Booster packs, which are the packs that you'll gain through dungeon crawling and more. Mobs being basically the enemies that you encounter through your runs. Gizmos, which are map hazards that you will encounter in certain stages. And props, which are the breakables that you'll find during your adventure. And heck, even the townspeople too. There's a lot in this game that you can collect, and I can imagine that to be one of the last or main driving forces to fully complete everything in this game. But if there's anything that I know that matters most about turn-based RPGs, is the battle speed. When you first start the game, everything will feel like it's moving fast, but the further that you get used to it, the faster you will want the game to go. Luckily, there's an option to bolster the game speed so that you can move as fast as you require to keep things moving along at a more active pace. It honestly took me a hot minute to find it, and now that I'm using it, there's no way I could go back. Overall, what I'm trying to say here is that there's a lot of stuff that can keep this game interesting through many runs and playthroughs, and I believe that it can capture anyone's attention given enough time. My finishing thoughts for this video is that I think that this game does a great job at being a pure deck building roguelite. It has a lot of things that it has going for it, and I really want this game to gain a little bit more attention. I can only recommend this game to other people who would like a different change of pace when it comes down to deck building. I'm definitely gonna pour more hours in this game right after this video is finished, because I really do like this game, and it's definitely one of the hidden gems that I was really glad I came across. I also wanted to lightly mention that the world building inside of the game is honestly kind of amazing. Maybe I'm looking a little bit too far into it, but it feels like everybody in the world and in the castle serve a purpose. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. This video took way too long to make, honestly. There's a lot that I'm trying to understand about the new process that I work on, because I tend to work pretty haphazardly. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing, you know, leave down a comment if you enjoyed the video. And honestly, please check out the game for yourself. It really does deserve the attention. But anyways, that's gonna be all from me. You are now leaving CyKer's world. See you on your next visit.